What if I told you that one of the most radical spiritual teachings of the 20th century was so dangerous that the FBI made sure it never reached the masses? Today, we're diving deep into the story of Gurdjieff, a man whose proof of human awakening and the unlocking of our true potential was allegedly silenced by powerful forces. If you've ever felt like life is just passing you by on autopilot, this story might just be the wake-up call you need. You see, most of us are stuck in what some call waking sleep, going through our daily routines without truly being present. And Gurdjieff? He wasn't just teaching a method to break free from this mechanical life. He was offering a blueprint for a complete revolution of the human mind. Imagine if every thought you had, every habit you formed, was part of a larger hidden script that kept you trapped in a false identity. Gurdjieff's teachings claim to expose this truth, and that truth, it turns out, was so potent it might have threatened the very foundations of society. In this video, we're going to peel back the layers on Gurdjieff's life and his revolutionary proof of awakening. We'll look at how his ideas stirred controversy, why government agencies like the FBI allegedly took an interest, and what it all means for us today. We'll mix together history, science, spirituality, and even some conspiracy theories that make you question everything you thought you knew. By the end, you might just be ready to step out of the sleepwalking routine and claim your own power. Let's start by talking about that feeling we all get sometimes, like we're drifting through life without really being alive. Most people go through their days in what we call waking sleep. It's that autopilot mode where you're doing everything, working, eating, even interacting with loved ones, without any real awareness. Picture it like stumbling around in a dark room until someone turns on the light, and suddenly, you see every obstacle that you've been tripping over. This isn't just about being bored or distracted. It's about a deeper disconnect, a false identity that's been built up since childhood by the rules of society. We're programmed from a young age to follow a certain script. Go to school, get a job, fit in, and never question the way things are. But what if there's a whole hidden layer of reality that you're missing out on? A layer where your thoughts, emotions, and actions aren't just random habits, but are connected to a grander cosmic design. Now let's throw history into the mix. In the early 20th century, as the world was reeling from wars and rapid social change, there emerged a number of radical ideas challenging the status quo. Alternative spiritual paths, philosophies, and movements started popping up everywhere. Ideas that encouraged people to look inward, to awaken to their true potential. And it was during this time that a man named Gurdjieff arrived on the scene, shaking up everything with his bold claims. Gurdjieff taught that most of us live in a state of sleep, mechanically following habits without ever questioning them. He argued that this waking sleep isn't just a personal failing. It's a condition imposed on all of us by a society that wants to keep us docile, easily controlled, and unaware of our true power. And here's where things get really interesting. If enough people were to wake up, if enough minds started to question the narrative, the entire system of control could crumble overnight. That idea of a mass awakening is both empowering and terrifying. It suggests that deep down, every single person has the potential to break free from the chains of conditioning and reclaim their true identity. But it also means that those in power, the ones who benefit from the status quo, have every reason to keep this knowledge under wraps. And that's exactly what we're here to explore. Before we dive into the conspiracy and the alleged FBI involvement, let's get to know Gurdjieff himself. Born in the late 1800s in what is now modern-day Armenia, Gurdjieff's early life was filled with mystery and adventure. He traveled extensively, absorbing ancient wisdom from diverse cultures across the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. Over the years, he synthesized these varied teachings into what he called the Fourth Way, a method that combined physical, emotional, and intellectual practices to awaken a person's full potential. At its core, the Fourth Way isn't about renouncing the world or retreating into isolation. Unlike the traditional paths of the monk, the ascetic, or the yogi, Gurdjieff's approach was designed to be integrated into everyday life. He believed that true awakening isn't achieved by escaping the world, but by fully engaging with it, by being fully present in every moment, every action, and every interaction. Central to his teachings is the concept of self-observation. Gurdjieff urged his students to watch themselves in everyday situations, to notice how they react, think, and behave without judgment. By doing so, you begin to see the automatic patterns, the false personality, that have been dictating your life since you were a child. Imagine for a moment being able to step outside of your own mind, like an actor watching a scene unfold. That's the kind of radical shift in awareness he was talking about. Gurdjieff's proof, then, wasn't a scientific experiment in a lab. It was a demonstration of transformation. His students were able to break free from their programmed habits and experience life with clarity and intensity. They reported feeling as if they had tapped into something far greater than themselves, a direct connection to the inner workings of the universe. And this wasn't just about personal growth. It was a blueprint for how humanity as a whole could evolve. It's no wonder then that his ideas were seen as so threatening. Here was a man offering a method that could potentially liberate the masses from a lifetime of sleepwalking. In a world where power is maintained by keeping people docile and distracted, Gurdjieff's teachings represented a direct challenge to the established order. Now let's get to the part that really makes your pulse race. The FBI connection. Over the years, there have been countless rumors and claims that government agencies, including the FBI, took a close interest in Gurdjieff's work. Why? Because his teachings weren't just another philosophical curiosity. They had the potential to ignite a revolution of the mind. During the mid-20th century, the FBI was known for keeping a close watch on any movement that could threaten the status quo. Think about it. This was a time when the government was deeply suspicious of any group or idea that encouraged independent thought and dissent. Radical political movements, unorthodox spiritual groups, and even certain types of art were all on the radar. There are claims that declassified documents and testimonies from former agents suggest that Gurdjieff's proof of awakening was seen as dangerous. The idea was simple, yet explosive. If enough people awakened to their true selves and began to question their conditioned beliefs, the tightly controlled social order could unravel. Imagine a society where every person is fully aware of their own power. A society where conformity is shattered by the force of individual awakening. For those in power, this wasn't just a theoretical risk, it was an existential threat. Some researchers point to instances where Gurdjieff's teachings were quietly sidelined in academic and mainstream circles. There are whispers of surveillance, of meetings where government officials discussed how to prevent these ideas from spreading. While concrete evidence may be sparse, and many of these claims remain in the realm of theory, they fit into a larger pattern. Other alternative spiritual movements, whether it's the counterculture of the 1960s or modern mindfulness practices, have often faced similar scrutiny. One of the more attention-grabbing claims is that the FBI was so afraid of a mass awakening that they actively worked behind the scenes to discredit and marginalize Gurdjieff's methods. The reasoning goes like this. If people start waking up to the truth about their conditioning, they'll start questioning authority, consumer culture, and the very systems that keep society in check. And when you start asking those kinds of questions, the ripple effects can be monumental. It's important to note that while we're exploring these ideas, not every claim has been verified beyond a shadow of a doubt. But that's part of the allure. This isn't just dry historical fact. It's a thrilling mystery that challenges us to look beyond the surface of what we've been told. Even if you're skeptical, the very possibility that such a cover-up existed should make you question how much control is really in our hands. At first glance, it might seem like science and spirituality are worlds apart. One is built on measurable facts, and the other on intangible experience. But Gurdjieff's teachings, and the modern research emerging in neuroscience and quantum physics suggests that these two realms might be more interconnected than we ever imagined. Let's talk about quantum mechanics for a minute. You've probably heard of the observer effect, the idea that the act of observation can actually change the outcome of a phenomenon at the subatomic level. In experiments with particles, scientists have shown that until a particle is observed, it exists in multiple states at once, a state known as quantum superposition. The moment you observe it, the particle chooses one state. Sounds a bit like what Gurdjieff was hinting at with his talk of self-remembering and awakening. In a way, he was saying that until we truly observe ourselves, we remain in a state of potential, never fully real. Modern research into mindfulness and self-observation has started to back up these ancient ideas. Studies have shown that practices like meditation and introspection can literally rewire your brain, creating new neural pathways that enhance your ability to focus and feel. It turns out that the process of becoming aware of your own thoughts isn't just a metaphor. It has measurable effects on your mind and body. When you start observing your emotions and reactions without judgment, you're not only gaining insight into your true self, you're also breaking free from the automated responses that have controlled you for years. And here's something even more fascinating. This isn't just about individual growth. When you start to awaken, you're aligning yourself with a kind of universal harmony. Picture a tuning fork vibrating in a quiet room. Its sound resonates, causing other objects to vibrate in sympathy. That's the idea behind mass awakening. When enough people start to operate on a higher level of consciousness, it creates a ripple effect, potentially shifting the entire energy of society. The merging of these scientific findings with ancient spiritual practices gives a whole new meaning to what Gurdjieff was trying to show. It's as if the universe is sending us hints that by observing ourselves and stepping out of our sleepwalking patterns, we're tapping into a truth that has been hidden for centuries. Whether it's the quantum realm or the ancient wisdom of the fourth way, the message is the same. Awaken, and everything changes. Have you ever caught yourself acting in a way that felt completely automatic? A habit or reaction you couldn't explain? That, right there, is the false personality at work. Gurdjieff taught that from the moment we're born, we start building layers upon layers of conditioning. Society, family, and culture all shape us into a version of ourselves that fits neatly into the world's expectations. Over time, these layers obscure our true essence, leaving us with a personality that isn't really ours at all. Imagine if you could peel back these layers, like stripping off the skin of an onion, to reveal the authentic you underneath. It might sound a bit radical, but that's exactly what the fourth way aims to do. One of its core practices is self-observation. This isn't your everyday introspection. It's about taking a step back and watching your own thoughts, emotions, and reactions as if you were an outsider. When you do this, you begin to see how much of what you do is simply programmed behavior. There's also the practice of non-identification, which is all about learning to separate yourself from those automatic reactions. Instead of saying, "I am angry," you start to notice, "I'm feeling anger." This tiny shift in perspective can have a huge impact over time. By realizing that your emotions and thoughts are just passing experiences, not the very core of who you are, you start to break free from the chains of conditioning. We've all experienced moments when it feels like there are multiple voices inside our heads, each pulling us in a different direction. This inner conflict isn't a sign of weakness. It's the battle between the conditioned self and the emerging true self. Research in psychology talks about cognitive dissonance, the mental stress that comes from holding conflicting beliefs. Gurdjieff believed that this inner war was exactly what kept us from reaching our full potential. Imagine that every time you let your conditioned habits take over, you're reinforcing a script that someone else wrote for you. The more you follow these patterns, the stronger they become. And here's where it gets really interesting. Studies have shown that when you actively practice self-observation, and non-identification, you're not just changing your mindset. You're literally rewiring your brain. New neural pathways form, and slowly, the old automatic patterns start to break down. This isn't just theoretical. Countless people who have embraced these practices report profound changes in their lives. They say they feel lighter, more in tune with their true desires, and even more capable of making decisions that align with who they really are. When you start to see yourself clearly, without the fog of conditioning, you begin to reclaim your power. And that's one of the most powerful outcomes of Gurdjieff's teachings, a journey toward authentic living. Imagine for a moment a world where every person isn't just going through the motions on autopilot, but is fully awake, aware, present, and in control of their inner life. Now take that vision a step further. What if millions of people all around the globe suddenly started to break free from their habitual patterns? What kind of ripple effect would that create in our society, and even in the cosmos? Today, we're going to dive deep into this possibility, exploring not just the personal, but the societal and cosmic impacts of mass awakening. Let's start with the personal side of things. Most of us live our lives in what can be called waking sleep. We move from task to task, from conversation to routine, without really questioning our habits or the forces that shape our decisions. We're conditioned from childhood to follow a script. Go to school, get a job, and keep your head down. This state of unconsciousness isn't just a personal shortfall. It's a system built to maintain order, control, and predictability. Now consider what happens when enough individuals decide to step off that script. When people begin to wake up, they start questioning everything. The media narratives they follow, the rules imposed by governments, the traditions that have long been accepted without a second thought. It's like the floor of society begins to tremble under the weight of thousands of minds suddenly alive to their own potential. The impact can be as subtle as new ideas percolating through everyday conversations, or as dramatic as large-scale protests demanding change. Historically, moments of mass awakening have often preceded major social revolutions. Think of the great civil rights movements, the anti-war protests of the 1960s, or even the more recent waves of social justice activism. In each of these cases, a shift in collective consciousness helped break down old structures and create the space for new ways of living. When people come together with a shared sense of purpose and awareness, it can shake even the most entrenched power systems. But what does this mean for our modern society? For starters, an awakened population would naturally be more critical of systems that exploit or manipulate. Consider our economic structures. The idea of endless consumerism, of working long hours in jobs that don't fulfill us, might be seen in a new light. If more people began to see through the illusion that buying more things brings happiness, we might witness a profound transformation in the way resources are distributed and priorities are set. Instead of a society driven by endless consumption, we might find a community that values sustainability, creativity, and genuine human connection. This shift wouldn't just affect the economy, it would also transform the political landscape. When individuals are more aware and engaged, they begin to demand transparency, accountability, and fairness from their leaders. Imagine voters who aren't just passive recipients of political propaganda, but are active participants in shaping policy and holding those in power accountable. A mass awakening could lead to a new era of participatory democracy, where decisions are made not behind closed doors by elites, but openly, with the collective input of an engaged populace. Beyond politics and economics, an awakened society would also transform cultural norms. Our current culture is saturated with images and messages that promote conformity, superficiality, and a fear of the unknown. Television shows, movies, and even social media often celebrate a lifestyle that prioritizes appearance over substance. But if a significant portion of the population were to start seeing life with fresh, unfiltered eyes, the demand for authenticity would skyrocket. Art, music, and literature would likely undergo a renaissance, driven by creators who are no longer bound by conventional expectations. We'd see a surge in art that challenges the norm, that reflects a deeper understanding of our inner lives and our connection to the world around us. There's also a profound cosmic element to consider. Think of the universe as a grand, interconnected web, a vast symphony where every individual note contributes to the overall harmony. When you're asleep on autopilot, your note is quiet, almost inaudible. But when you awaken, your unique frequency begins to resonate. In physics, we see that when a tuning fork vibrates, it can cause nearby objects to vibrate in sympathy. Imagine each awakened mind as a tuning fork. When enough of us start resonating at this higher frequency, the collective vibration could alter the music of society. It's as if every moment of conscious awareness contributes to a greater, cosmic harmony, one that not only transforms our social structures, but also aligns us with the natural rhythms of the universe. This idea isn't just abstract philosophy. It finds echoes in modern science as well. Recent research in neuroscience shows that when we practice mindfulness and self-awareness, we literally change the structure of our brains. Neural pathways are rewired, and the old, automatic patterns begin to break down. This isn't just a metaphor, it's a physical change that can lead to improved creativity, better emotional regulation, and enhanced decision-making. Now imagine if an entire society experienced these changes simultaneously. The potential for collective evolution becomes almost unimaginable. On a cosmic scale, an awakened society might even alter our relationship with the world around us. Consider the environmental crisis we face today. Many of our problems, climate change, pollution, depletion of natural resources, stem from a disconnect between humanity and nature. When we're caught up in the cycle of consumption and distraction, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that we are part of a larger, living ecosystem. But if mass awakening were to occur, we might see a renewed sense of responsibility toward the Earth. People would start to understand that every action has a consequence, not just for themselves but for the entire planet. The shift could lead to more sustainable practices, a greater emphasis on conservation, and a new ethic that places the well-being of the environment at the heart of human progress. Now let's dive deeper into the societal consequences. One of the most fascinating aspects of mass awakening is its potential to dissolve the boundaries that separate us. In our current world, divisions based on race, class, religion, and nationality are stark. These divisions have been reinforced over centuries, often for political and economic gain. But when people awaken to their true selves, they begin to see beyond these superficial labels. The recognition that we are all part of the same human tapestry can lead to a greater sense of unity and compassion. As more individuals embrace their shared humanity, the social fabric could be rewoven in a way that fosters cooperation rather than competition. This potential for unity has profound implications for global conflict. Many of the world's wars and tensions have roots in perceived differences and the fear of the other. An awakened society, one that recognizes the interconnectedness of all life, might be far less inclined toward aggression and more open to dialogue and peaceful resolution. Imagine international relations based not on power struggles, but on mutual respect and the recognition that every nation is part of a larger, interdependent community. The impact on global peace could be revolutionary. Yet, with all these potential benefits, the process of mass awakening is not without its challenges and risks. Awakening is not an instantaneous switch. It's a gradual process that often comes with discomfort. As individuals begin to peel away the layers of conditioning, they may experience emotional turbulence, uncertainty, and even isolation. On a societal level, this transitional period could be marked by significant upheaval. Established institutions, which thrive on the predictable behavior of a conditioned population, might resist change fiercely. There could be economic disruptions, political instability, and even social unrest as the old order struggles to maintain its grip. However, it's important to remember that every great transformation in history has been accompanied by its own set of challenges. The key is to see these disruptions not as insurmountable obstacles, but as necessary growing pains on the path to a higher level of collective consciousness. Just as a seed must break through the hard soil to become a flourishing tree, society may need to endure a period of upheaval before it can fully realize its potential. Let's take a moment to consider the role of technology in this picture. In today's world, technology is both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it has connected us in ways that were unimaginable just a few decades ago, giving rise to global communities and instant access to information. On the other hand, it has also contributed to our collective distraction, feeding us a constant stream of superficial content that keeps our minds busy, but rarely truly engaged. Imagine, though, if technology were harnessed as a tool for awakening rather than distraction. Social media, online courses, and virtual communities could become powerful platforms for spreading awareness, sharing personal transformation stories, and mobilizing collective action. In a mass-awakened society, technology might be repurposed to enhance our understanding of each other and the world, rather than to keep us in a state of constant shallow engagement. Now picture a scenario where communities across the globe begin to function not just as isolated pockets of awakened individuals, but as interconnected networks of conscious beings. These networks could facilitate the exchange of ideas, support sustainable practices, and even coordinate efforts to address global challenges like climate change, poverty, and injustice. The Internet, with its vast reach and potential for connection, could be the backbone of a new era of cooperative, global citizenship. In this future, every person's awakened consciousness would contribute to a larger, collective intelligence, one that is capable of solving complex problems and creating a more just and harmonious world. Beyond the tangible social and technological changes, there is also a more subtle, almost spiritual dimension to consider. The process of awakening is not just a mental or emotional exercise, it's a profound realignment of one's entire being. When individuals awaken, they often report a deep sense of connection to something greater than themselves, a feeling of unity with nature, the universe, or even the divine. This experience of interconnectedness can transform the way we relate to the world. It can inspire a sense of awe and reverence for life in all its forms, fostering a culture of gratitude and stewardship. As more people tap into this inner reservoir of wisdom, society as a whole could shift away from values of greed and competition toward values of cooperation, empathy, and sustainability. The cosmic impact of mass awakening might seem like science fiction, but it's rooted in some of the most intriguing findings of modern science. Take, for example, the idea of resonance in physics. When a tuning fork vibrates, it sends out waves that cause other objects nearby to vibrate in sympathy. Now, imagine each awakened person as a vibrating tuning fork, their energy rippling out into the world. As these vibrations interact, they create a collective resonance that can influence the very fabric of our social reality. It's as if every conscious thought, every mindful action, contributes to a larger symphony of change that has the potential to realign our world with higher frequencies of harmony and balance. Furthermore, the idea of interconnectedness is not new. Ancient philosophies, from Eastern mysticism to indigenous wisdom traditions, have long taught that all life is intertwined, that every action, no matter how small, has a ripple effect on the whole. In the modern context, this concept is finding new resonance through studies in ecology, quantum physics, and systems theory. Scientists are beginning to understand that our planet is a complex, interconnected system, where even tiny changes can have far-reaching consequences. In a way, mass awakening isn't just a social or cultural shift. It's a natural process of evolution that mirrors the dynamics of the universe itself. As we look to the future, it's exciting to imagine the possibilities. A mass-awakened society could be more innovative, creative, and resilient. With more people operating from a place of awareness, there's the potential for breakthroughs in every field, from medicine and technology to education and governance. New ideas could flourish in an environment where curiosity is nurtured and conformity is challenged. Imagine educational systems that emphasize critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and self-awareness rather than rote learning. Picture workplaces that value collaboration, mindfulness, and holistic well-being over mere profit and productivity. This isn't a utopian fantasy. It's a glimpse of what could be possible if more people choose to wake up and embrace their true potential. Of course, it's important to acknowledge that this transformation won't happen overnight. Change of this magnitude requires persistence, collective effort, and the courage to challenge deeply entrenched systems. There will be setbacks and resistance from those who benefit from the current state of affairs, but history has shown us time and again that human consciousness is capable of remarkable shifts. Even small pockets of awakened communities can spark larger movements, inspiring others to question, explore, and ultimately transform their own lives. To sum it up, the societal and cosmic impact of mass awakening is a subject that touches every aspect of our lives. It challenges the status quo by suggesting that the very foundations of our society, our politics, economy, culture, and even our technology, are built on a premise of collective sleep. And it offers a radical alternative, a world where every individual is an active, conscious participant in shaping reality. Whether it's through small acts of personal transformation or large-scale social movements, each step toward awakening creates a ripple that can reverberate far beyond our immediate surroundings. As you reflect on this possibility, ask yourself, what kind of world do you really want to live in? One where you're merely a cog in an unfeeling machine, or one where you have the power to shape your destiny and contribute to a greater cosmic harmony? The answer is up to you, and it starts with a single conscious choice to wake up. There's a mystery hanging in the air, a mystery that whispers of secrets hidden behind locked files, covert meetings, and silent corridors of power. Imagine for a moment that every time you felt a sudden chill or a fleeting doubt about the status quo, it wasn't just paranoia. It was a hint that something monumental was being deliberately kept from us. In this section, we're going to peel back the layers on the evidence that suggests Gurdjieff's groundbreaking teachings were not only controversial, but were actively suppressed. We're diving deep into claims, documents, testimonials, and intriguing anecdotes that paint a picture of a powerful establishment determined to keep transformative knowledge under wraps. Let's start with the whispers and rumors that have circulated for decades. For years, researchers, former students, and even ex-agents have hinted that Gurdjieff's methods were seen as a threat. The argument is simple yet electrifying. If people could break free from their programmed behavior, then the carefully engineered system of control, a system built on the predictability of passive, conditioned minds, would begin to crumble. It's as if the idea of widespread awakening was a direct challenge to those who benefit from keeping the masses in a state of unawareness. When you start asking, what if everyone woke up? The very foundations of our society would shake. Some of the most compelling evidence comes from declassified files and fragmented documents that have surfaced over the years. Although many of these files have been heavily redacted, a pattern begins to emerge when you put them together. In the mid-20th century, a period when the government was highly suspicious of any movement that encouraged independent thought, alternative spiritual practices were rigorously monitored. Researchers point to instances where agencies like the FBI took a keen interest in groups associated with Gurdjieff's teachings. These documents hint at surveillance programs and covert investigations targeting spiritual communities that were inspired by the Fourth Way. Take, for example, the case files that mention unorthodox methods of self-transformation and potential threats to societal order. While the exact details are often obscured by classified markings, the language used is striking. It suggests that officials saw these practices not just as eccentricities, but as potent ideas that could ignite a chain reaction of awakening, a chain reaction that might disrupt established power structures. The fact that such ideas warranted government attention is in itself a clue. Powerful institutions are rarely interested in monitoring what they consider harmless self-help trends. So, why was there such an intense focus on these teachings? Then, there are the testimonies, personal accounts from former students, practitioners, and even insiders from intelligence communities. Many of these voices speak with a mix of reverence and disbelief about what they experienced. Students of Gurdjieff's methods often recount moments of profound clarity and transformation that went far beyond the ordinary. They described waking moments that shattered decades of conditioning, allowing them to see the world in a completely different light. For many, this wasn't just an intellectual exercise, it was a complete revolution of the inner self. And when you have individuals whose lives are transformed so dramatically, it's no wonder that such power would be seen as dangerous. Some former intelligence officials, now out in the open, have hinted at their involvement in monitoring alternative movements. They recall briefings about groups that practiced radical self-observation and non-identification, terms that might seem benign on the surface but were laden with subversive potential in the eyes of those charged with maintaining order. In one notable account, an ex-agent described how a particular file on alternative spiritual movements was flagged as a potential threat, not because it promoted violence or overt rebellion, but because it encouraged people to think for themselves. This might sound far-fetched at first, but when you consider that true power always stems from an informed, awakened populace, the idea begins to make a strange kind of sense. It's also important to look at how mainstream academia and media have treated Gurdjieff's work over the decades. There's a noticeable pattern of sidelining and marginalization. Despite the transformative claims and the fervent devotion of his students, Gurdjieff's teachings were often brushed aside as eccentric or fringe. When revolutionary ideas threaten the comfort of the established order, they are frequently dismissed, not on the basis of evidence, but because they challenge the dominant narrative. A few insightful critics have pointed out that while many spiritual movements have been given a fair shake in scholarly circles, those that carry the potential to upend societal norms are met with a degree of skepticism that borders on outright dismissal. This selective acceptance, or rather rejection, of ideas raises an uncomfortable question. Is it possible that the suppression of Gurdjieff's proof was less about its validity and more about its potential to disrupt the status quo? Delving even deeper, there's an intriguing overlap between the evidence surrounding Gurdjieff and the broader context of governmental surveillance on countercultural movements. In the 1960s and 70s, the FBI's COINTELPRO program is well documented as having targeted groups that challenged mainstream ideas, whether they were political activists, civil rights leaders, or alternative spiritual communities. While Gurdjieff's movement wasn't as overtly political as some of these other groups, its emphasis on awakening and self-transformation carried an inherent threat. A threat that an empowered, self-aware population could begin to question everything from consumerism to governmental authority. In this light, the attention that Gurdjieff's teachings attracted fits a broader pattern of suppressing ideas that have the potential to mobilize the masses. There's also the matter of timing. Many of the most intense periods of surveillance coincide with moments when his teachings began to spread more widely, especially in Western countries. As the counterculture of the 1960s gained momentum, alternative spiritual practices found fertile ground. But with that expansion came increased scrutiny. Some researchers argue that the rise of the New Age movement, with its eclectic mix of Eastern philosophies, meditation practices, and self-help ideologies, wasn't entirely organic. There are claims that elements of these movements were, at least in part, a response to, and a way of circumventing, the suppression of earlier, more radical teachings like those of Gurdjieff. In other words, When a transformative idea is pushed to the margins, it often resurfaces in a new form, albeit sometimes diluted to escape the watchful eyes of authorities. What about the individuals behind the silencing? While concrete evidence is hard to pin down, there are persistent accounts of meetings and discussions within government circles where the potential fallout of a mass awakening was a major concern. Insiders have hinted at the idea that leaders in intelligence and law enforcement were genuinely terrified of what a fully awakened population might mean. They reportedly saw the awakening of human consciousness as a domino effect that could lead to a breakdown in social order, a scenario in which established institutions would be rendered obsolete by the sheer force of collective enlightenment. Some of these accounts come from anonymous sources who insist that the suppression of Gurdjieff's work wasn't just a matter of passive neglect, but an active, deliberate campaign. They talk of discrediting his ideas, smearing his reputation, and even infiltrating groups to sow seeds of doubt and division. Although such claims can be hard to verify with hard facts, they add an extra layer of intrigue to the story. After all, history is replete with examples of powerful entities going to great lengths to ensure that revolutionary ideas remain underground. It's also worth noting the role that selective memory plays in this narrative. When ideas are suppressed, the details often become obscured over time. Many who were once inspired by Gurdjieff's work now find their memories of it clouded by mainstream narratives that paint his teachings as merely quirky or outdated. This cultural amnesia serves a purpose. It keeps the potential for awakening at bay by ensuring that transformative ideas do not easily resurface. Yet, the very act of suppression can sometimes make an idea even more alluring. The notion that the truth is out there and that powerful forces are actively working to keep us in the dark only fuels curiosity and the desire to uncover what has been hidden. So, what can we make of all this evidence? The truth, as is often the case, is complex and layered. On one level, there is certainly documentation and testimony that suggest Gurdjieff's teachings were viewed with suspicion by those in power. There are documents that hint at covert monitoring, testimonies that speak of internal discussions about the threat of mass awakening, and patterns of marginalization in both academia and the media. On another level, however, much of the evidence is shrouded in mystery, wrapped in claims and counterclaims that leave plenty of room for interpretation. The lack of definitive proof does not necessarily disprove the notion that powerful entities would be concerned about a mass awakening. If anything, it highlights the difficulty of preserving such transformative ideas in an environment that favors control over change. In the end, the evidence we have is a mosaic, a collection of fragmented documents, whispered testimonies, and curious historical coincidences that together suggest a deliberate effort to silence ideas that could disrupt the status quo. Whether you choose to see this as a grand conspiracy or simply as a cautionary tale about the power of transformative ideas is up to you. But one thing is clear: the very fact that we are questioning and investigating this suppression means that the ideas at the heart of Gurdjieff's teachings have a power that refuses to be completely extinguished. As you reflect on this deep dive into the evidence, consider the implications. If these claims hold even a kernel of truth, then the story of Gurdjieff's silenced proof isn't just an isolated incident. It's a window into the broader struggle between established power and the liberating force of awakened consciousness. It's a reminder that the pursuit of truth, especially when it challenges the accepted order, is often met with resistance, sometimes from the most unexpected quarters. And perhaps that is the most compelling part of all. The very act of seeking out and sharing this evidence is, in itself, a form of awakening. It invites you to look beyond the surface, to question the narratives handed down to you, and to reclaim your own capacity for discernment. In a world where so much is designed to keep you in a state of passive acceptance, every bit of inquiry, every question asked, becomes an act of rebellion, a small step toward the mass awakening that might one day transform society as a whole. So as we pull back the curtain on these hidden files and unspoken testimonies, ask yourself, what would it mean if the forces that govern our lives are indeed so afraid of the power of an awakened mind? And what does it say about our potential if such radical ideas are met with such fierce resistance? In exploring these questions, we not only honor the legacy of Gurdjieff's teachings, but also challenge ourselves to become more aware, more curious, and ultimately more free. Imagine waking up one day to realize that the life you've been living is like a well-worn movie script, one that you never auditioned for, and that has dictated your every move without you even knowing it. Now picture a different reality, one where you're not merely an actor following a predetermined role, but the director of your own life. This isn't some far-fetched fantasy. It's the promise at the heart of Gurdjieff's teachings. Today we're going to explore the practical techniques that can lead you on the path to personal liberation, a journey toward breaking free from the false personality and stepping into your true, awakened self. At its core, this path is about developing a new kind of awareness. It starts with the simple yet transformative practice of self-observation. This isn't the kind of observation you might do when watching a movie. It's about turning the camera inward and really watching yourself in action. You begin by noticing every thought, every emotion, and every habit as it arises throughout your day. It may sound challenging at first, but it's one of the most powerful ways to break the automatic patterns that keep you trapped in a state of waking sleep. Let's break this down with a simple exercise. For a few minutes each day, find a quiet spot, no distractions, no phones, and just sit. Close your eyes if you can and focus on your breathing. As you breathe, allow your thoughts to come and go, but simply observe them without judgment. Notice when your mind drifts into memories of the past or worries about the future. Don't try to change anything. Just be an impartial witness to your own inner dialogue. Over time, this practice can reveal the habitual patterns that run your life, making it possible for you to choose a different, more conscious response. Another essential technique is non-identification. This practice is all about learning to separate who you are from the fleeting thoughts and emotions that pass through your mind. Instead of saying, "I am angry" or "I am sad," try noticing there is anger or there is sadness. This small shift in language creates a vital space between you and your experiences. When you realize that these feelings are not the entirety of who you are, you begin to dismantle the false personality that has been built up over years of conditioning. Non-identification can be practiced in everyday life, not just in moments of quiet reflection. Imagine you're in a heated conversation with someone. Instead of immediately reacting, take a moment to pause and observe your reaction. Recognize the tension rising in your body and the thoughts racing through your mind. By simply noting these reactions, you start to see that they are temporary and do not define you. With practice, this creates the opportunity to choose a response that is more thoughtful and aligned with your true self. Gurdjieff also introduced a series of physical exercises designed to bring the mind, body, and emotions into a state of harmony. These exercises aren't meant to be grueling workouts. Rather, they are mindful movements that invite you to become fully present in your body. For example, one common practice is to slowly raise your arms while paying close attention to the sensations in your muscles and the rhythm of your breath. As you move, focus intently on each part of the motion, noticing how your body feels and how your mind reacts. Over time, these movements can help you break free from the rigidity of habitual posture and tension, opening up a space where awareness and physical presence merge. Let's dive deeper into a technique known as the stop exercise. This is one of the most straightforward yet powerful tools in your liberation toolkit. Throughout your day, at random moments, simply freeze. Whatever you're doing, just stop. For instance, if you're walking down the street, pause for a moment and take a deep breath. Look around, notice the sounds, the sensations, the very state of being present in that instant. This sudden interruption of your routine forces you to step out of autopilot mode. It's like hitting a reset button that reminds you that every moment is an opportunity to be awake. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to catch yourself before you slip back into old patterns. Another practical approach is to set aside a dedicated awareness period each day. This might be 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes before bed when you sit quietly and observe without any agenda. Over weeks and months, these small pockets of attention accumulate into a more sustained state of awareness throughout your day. It's similar to watering a plant. A little attention here and there helps it grow, and eventually, you notice a transformation in how you engage with the world. Now, personal liberation isn't solely an inward journey. It's also about transforming your relationships with others. When you begin to observe yourself, you naturally start to see how you interact with the people around you. Perhaps you realize that you're often reactive in conversations, or that you automatically fall into roles that don't serve you. The same techniques of self-observation and non-identification apply here. For example, if you notice that you tend to get defensive during criticism, you can gently remind yourself that these feelings are just passing states, not an inherent flaw. By recognizing these patterns, you create the possibility to respond in a way that is more authentic and compassionate. Many people who have embarked on this journey report that their relationships begin to change dramatically. They become better listeners, more patient, and more empathetic. This isn't because they suddenly become perfect, but because they start seeing others as fellow travelers on the same path of awakening. There's a shared understanding that we're all working to overcome the limitations of our conditioned minds, and that in doing so, we can support each other in a truly transformative way. For those of you who might be wondering how to integrate these techniques into a busy modern life, consider this. Liberation isn't about finding extra hours in your day. It's about shifting your perspective on the time you already have. You can practice self-observation during your morning coffee, on your commute, or even in the midst of a hectic workday. It might feel awkward at first to pause and notice your inner state in a public space, but remember that this practice is for you and no one else. Over time, it becomes a natural part of your day, as essential as brushing your teeth. An additional technique to explore is journaling. While it might sound old-fashioned, writing down your thoughts and observations can be incredibly illuminating. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to jot down any insights you gained from moments of self-observation. What did you notice about your habitual reactions? Were there moments when you managed to pause before responding? Did you feel a shift in your energy when you practiced non-identification? Journaling helps solidify these experiences, turning fleeting moments of awareness into lasting change. It's also a wonderful way to track your progress over time and see how your understanding of yourself evolves. One of the most transformative aspects of these practices is that they empower you to reclaim your personal power. When you're living on autopilot, you often feel like a passenger in your own life, subject to forces and habits that seem beyond your control. But by practicing self-observation, non-identification, and mindful movement, you begin to see that you are not at the mercy of your conditioning. You are the observer, the director, the one who has the ability to choose a different path. This realization can be profoundly liberating. It opens up a space where you can start to shape your life in ways that truly resonate with who you are. Let's imagine a scenario to illustrate this point. Picture yourself stuck in a repetitive cycle at work, constantly stressed, overwhelmed, and feeling like every day is just a blur of tasks and deadlines. Now, imagine that you start practicing a simple pause before you react. Instead of immediately succumbing to stress, you take a breath, observe the tightness in your chest, and notice the racing thoughts in your mind. In that moment, you're no longer just a stressed employee. You're an awakened individual who recognizes the pattern and chooses to respond differently. Perhaps you decide to step away for a brief walk or to jot down your feelings in a notebook. That small act of awareness can slowly transform how you deal with stress, making each day a bit more intentional and less dictated by old habits. Another practical technique is to use reminders throughout your day. These can be physical objects, a bracelet, a keychain, even a sticky note on your computer that serve as cues to bring you back to the present moment. Every time you see that reminder, it's an invitation to pause and ask yourself, am I awake right now? What am I feeling? These small nudges help integrate awareness into your routine, ensuring that even on the busiest days, you have moments of clarity and presence. In addition to these exercises, many teachers of the Fourth Way recommend integrating movement meditations into your daily routine. These are exercises that combine gentle physical movements with mindful awareness. Unlike traditional workouts, these movements are not about pushing your body to its limits, but about engaging with your body in a deliberate, attentive way. For instance, you might try slow, deliberate stretching, focusing on each muscle group and noticing the sensations that arise with every movement. Over time, this practice can help release tension that you may not even have realized was there, while also fostering a deeper connection between your mind and body. A key aspect of these techniques is consistency. Personal liberation isn't something that happens overnight. It's a gradual process of peeling away layers of conditioning, one small step at a time. There will be days when you feel a breakthrough, when you're fully in tune with your inner self, and other days when old habits seem to creep back in. The important thing is to persist. Each moment of awareness, no matter how brief, is a victory, a reminder that you have the power to live consciously. It can also be incredibly helpful to connect with others who are on the same journey. While the path to liberation is deeply personal, sharing your experiences with like-minded individuals can offer support, inspiration, and a sense of community. Many people join discussion groups or online forums dedicated to Gurdjieff's teachings and related practices. In these communities, you can share your challenges, celebrate your breakthroughs, and learn new techniques from others who understand what it means to awaken. This communal aspect reinforces the idea that you are not alone in your struggle against the conditioned patterns of everyday life. Furthermore, consider exploring additional resources such as books, podcasts, or workshops that delve into the practical applications of these techniques. The more you immerse yourself in the subject, the more tools you will accumulate for your journey toward liberation. There are countless authors and teachers who have built upon Gurdjieff's original ideas, offering modern interpretations and additional practices that can further refine your path to awareness. One of the most beautiful outcomes of these practices is that they begin to reveal the interconnected nature of your inner world. As you become more adept at self-observation, you start noticing patterns that not only influence your individual behavior, but also ripple out into your interactions with others. You might begin to see how your mood affects your family, or how your level of awareness can influence your work environment. This broader perspective reinforces the idea that personal liberation is not just about improving your own life, it's about contributing to the collective evolution of consciousness. Imagine a future where more and more people are practicing these techniques. A future where every individual, by taking a few conscious breaths, makes a choice to be present. The cumulative effect of millions of people making these small shifts could lead to a profound transformation in society. The old systems of control, built on keeping people in a state of unawareness, would be challenged by a new wave of informed, self-directed individuals. In that future, the quality of human relationships, the workplace, and even the structure of our communities would be transformed by the simple yet powerful act of waking up. In practical terms, the journey toward personal liberation is about reclaiming the present moment and understanding that every moment is an opportunity for change. It means embracing the idea that you have the power to direct your life, rather than being a passive recipient of circumstances. Every time you practice self-observation, every moment you choose non-identification, and every time you pause to connect with your inner self, you are taking a definitive step toward a more liberated, authentic life. So what does this look like in everyday practice? It means that when you're stuck in a frustrating conversation, you can choose to observe your rising tension rather than automatically lashing out. It means that when you feel overwhelmed by the demands of your day, you can take a few moments to center yourself with deep, mindful breaths. It means that even amid chaos, you can find a quiet space within where you are simply, unmistakably awake. These aren't grand gestures. They're simple acts of awareness that, over time, have the power to completely transform your experience of life. Ultimately, the path to personal liberation is a journey of rediscovery, of peeling away the layers of conditioning to reveal the vibrant, authentic self that lies beneath. It's about learning to live each moment with intention, to notice the beauty in the mundane, and to embrace the truth that you are the master of your own destiny. And while the journey may have its challenges, every step you take toward greater awareness is a step toward a richer, more fulfilling life. In closing, consider this your invitation to begin, or deepen, your own journey of self-liberation. Experiment with these techniques, explore what works best for you, and remember that every moment of conscious awareness is a powerful act of rebellion against the forces that seek to keep you asleep. With patience, persistence, and a willingness to look deeply within, you can unlock the door to a life that is not only more aware, but also more profoundly alive. Now that we've explored the past, the mystery, and the practical techniques, let's look to the future. Gurdjieff's teachings, despite attempts to silence them, have never really disappeared. In fact, they've experienced a quiet revival in recent decades. New generations of spiritual seekers, disillusioned with a world that feels increasingly mechanized and disconnected, are turning to these ideas as a way to reclaim their true power. You might have noticed a growing interest in mindfulness, meditation, and other practices that encourage self-observation. It's no coincidence. These practices share a common thread with Gurdjieff's work. Across the globe, people are realizing that the key to a more fulfilling life lies in breaking free from the scripts they've been handed. And as more and more people wake up, the potential for real societal transformation grows. Imagine a future where the old systems of control are replaced by a community of awakened individuals, people who are aware of their own potential and who work together to create a more just, compassionate, and dynamic society. That's the promise of Gurdjieff's teachings. A world where each person is empowered to be the best version of themselves, and in doing so, contributes to the evolution of the whole. Of course, this future won't be handed to us on a silver platter. There will be challenges, resistance from those who profit from keeping people in the dark, and the personal struggles that come with confronting years of conditioning. But every great transformation comes with its own set of obstacles. The important thing is that you know the path exists, and that even if it's difficult, the rewards are beyond anything you could imagine. There are already communities, online forums, and local groups dedicated to exploring the Fourth Way and other similar teachings. These spaces are where people share their experiences, exchange ideas, and support one another on the journey toward awakening. The legacy of Gurdjieff isn't just in dusty books or obscure lectures. It's alive and well in the hearts and minds of those who dare to question the norm. Looking forward, many experts and spiritual teachers predict that we're on the cusp of a massive shift in human consciousness. As technology evolves, and as we face global challenges that force us to rethink how we live. The old ways of doing things are no longer sustainable. It might sound a bit like science fiction, but there's a growing belief that humanity is poised for a transformation, a shift that could be as profound as anything we've seen before. To wrap up this incredible journey, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered. We started with a simple, almost shocking question. What if the truth about our own potential was so dangerous that it was suppressed by the very institutions designed to keep us under control? From there, we dove into the life of Gurdjieff, a man who dared to challenge the status quo with his fourth way, a practical method to wake up from the sleepwalking state that so many of us unknowingly inhabit. We've seen how his teachings blend ancient wisdom with modern insights, how they call for an active, conscious participation in every moment of our lives. And we've looked at the claims, some proven, some speculative, that powerful forces like the FBI may have gone to great lengths to keep this transformative knowledge under wraps. Whether you're fully convinced or you're just curious, one thing is clear. There's a world of possibility waiting for anyone brave enough to question the old narratives and step into their true power. The journey toward awakening isn't an easy one. It means confronting uncomfortable truths, challenging long-held beliefs, and sometimes even feeling isolated as you begin to see the world in a radically different light. But remember, every great change in history started with a single spark of awareness. When you start paying attention to your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions, you're not only reclaiming your own life, you're contributing to a larger movement that has the potential to reshape society itself. So, what do you choose? Will you continue to live on autopilot, or are you ready to take that bold step toward awakening? The path is laid out before you, with practical tools, historical intrigue, and a vision of a better, more conscious future. The choice is yours. And if you decide to join this journey, know that you're not alone. The legacy of Gurdjieff and the promise of mass awakening live in every moment you choose to be truly present. Before we end, I want to share a few additional thoughts. Over the years, many of you have asked for more details, timelines, sources, definitions of key concepts, and even FAQs about these teachings. While this video has focused on the story and the methods, know that there's a wealth of supplementary material out there for anyone interested in diving deeper. From declassified documents hinting at government surveillance to modern studies on mindfulness and neuroplasticity, the evidence is as layered as the mystery itself. For those who want to explore further, I recommend checking out some of the books and documentaries on Gurdjieff and the Fourth Way. These resources will give you a broader context and help you see how these ideas have evolved over the decades. And as always, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember that every moment of true awareness is a step toward a more liberated life. As we close out this deep dive into Gurdjieff's suppressed proof and the idea that our waking sleep might be a state imposed on us by forces too big to imagine, I want you to carry this thought with you. Real power lies in awareness. Each time you catch yourself on autopilot, each moment you choose to observe rather than react, you're taking back a piece of your true self. And who knows, maybe that collective act of waking up is exactly what will transform our world for the better. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. If this video sparked even a tiny bit of curiosity, imagine what you could achieve by diving deeper into your own consciousness. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me, what's the first step you're going to take to wake up from your own sleepwalking? And if you're ready to join a community of fellow truth seekers, hit that subscribe button and be part of this revolution of the mind. Remember, the power to change your life, and maybe even the world, is in your hands. It all starts with a single moment of awareness. So, are you ready to wake up?